everybody, and welcome once again to the UnLearned Podcast. I am your host, Ruth Abigail, aka RA,
What's up, friends? It's your girl Jaquita.
and this is the podcast that's helping you gain the courage to change your mind so that you can experience more freedom. Okay, what's up, Quita? How you doing today?
Woo!
Woo!
Listen, Ruth Abigail, we out here in these streets. We're doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day outside, and the Lord has created yet a glorious moment.
Wow, that's amen.
Hallelujah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Amen, everybody. Yes, it is a beautiful day. We are recording this on a Saturday, and it is the day before Sunday, and Quita gets a little like that on the day before church.
Listen, when I just think about the goodness of my
Oh boy.
God,
Okay.
it just bubbles up on the inside.
Wow.
No, but seriously,
Wow.
it's been a time of reflection, like especially we're talking about all of these like personality and assessment things, and you just start I feel like it has really helped me to think through how much I've grown, from young adult to middle adult years.
Yeah, that's
Like
good.
especially because I took a lot of these tests when I was a young adult.
Right.
And like the way that I thought about them then versus the way that I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, this middle adult life is different. We trying to tell you.
Well, it is, and I will say the one we're doing today has probably been one of the most influential ones for me personally, and particularly in the way that I approach work in my career and any kind of thing that falls into that category, because there were so many things about myself as a younger leader and a younger professional where I had made decisions that actually went against what my strengths were. I'd made decisions about who I was that went against my strengths. And then when I found out what those were, I was like, yo, like I can kind of create my own career path that actually works in a way that isn't draining and that's exciting based on what I realize I'm good at. And the test doesn't tell you it doesn't determine what you're good at. It just lets you into it, gives you language to it. So it very much resonated with me. And so the one we're talking about today is the the Strength Finders.
Strength Finders, everybody. Strength Finders.
Strength Finders.
Listen, I feel like because Strength Finders, people put it in their signatures of their emails.
Oh yeah.
Like here are my top 5. They put it on their resumes, like Strength Finders is for the professionals.
It's for the professionals.
It's for the people working at 9 to 5. Well, maybe not 9 to 5, but you got your job. You got PTO, you got benefits. About Strength Finders,
Not I have PTO. That's hilarious.
Listen, PTO is, as a middle adult, there is very few things I appreciate more than my PTO. Okay?
Sure.
Listen, it was, when I was young, it was like, yeah, I'm just going to take a day off. Now it's do not call me. I will not be answering these emails. I need a break from responsibility.
Amen.
And I need no pressure. Like my PTO is serious.
Amen. I know.
So yeah, no. If you thinking seriously about Strengths Finder, somewhere you got means to take a day off.
You got PTO
some kind of way.
You got benefits. Yeah. You got
listen.
You probably in an office somewhere, or you definitely have a laptop. This is who Strength Finders was built for. It's built for people who are who are wanting to grow in their careers. Like that's what it's for, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that one. I like I said, this one has done a lot for me in this space.
Me too.
And I really love it. It really did revolutionize how I saw my working, like my daily work, and even how I saw myself in the work that I do. So what we're going to do is going to break down a little bit of what it is for those of you that are unfamiliar with it. And then we're going to talk about our particular strengths and kind of what we've had to unlearn about those, how we have to refine those, and maybe it can help you too. All right. So Strength Finders, it is through Gallup. So it's a huge company that does all these. You're probably taking a survey that Gallup's done, but they do assessments and surveys, and they're big data people, right? They're one of the most, I think, one of the most reliable data sources out there, right?
Yeah.
And so what Strength Finders does is, so the reality is most of us, and most of the a lot of advice, I'm gonna say most, but a lot of advice we hear is, you know, you need to focus on your weaknesses, grow your weaknesses, like do something about these weaknesses. You're not good at this, you need to
Mm-hmm.
become better, right? And that is, I'm not saying that you don't have to do that, that's not untrue. However, what Strength Finders argues is that for when we put too much energy in focusing on our weaknesses, it's draining and it's unmotivating. And so what it does is want to shift your energy, shift your focus. It's not that you ignore your weaknesses, but you don't put as much energy into your weaknesses. You put more energy into really refining your strengths. It is more energizing and it's more motivating, it's more encouraging, and it'll help you to stay in whatever that career path, to stay in it longer, quite frankly, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not focused on what you're not good at, you're focused at what you are good at. And so that is the premise of the whole thing. Instead of focusing on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths. The cool thing, so the way it has four different categories. You have your execution strengths, you have your relationship building strengths, you have your influencing strengths, and you have your strategic thinking strengths. There's four categories. There are 34 different strengths in all that are then plotted in those four areas. And so when you take the test, so you can take it, you can go to gallup.com, find it. It's called Clifton Strength Finders. What you can do, you can take it. It's about 20, $25, I think. It may have gone up though. I don't know. Um,
Listen, if
I
you're an
don't know.
educator, use your educator
Yeah, you
discounts.
use that
Okay.
discount. It might be a little higher,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll give you your top five, right? And then if you want to unlock the other ones, you got to pay more, of course. But it'll give you your top five. And what it does is 34, right? So they all have a general definition to them. But what's really, I think, the next layer of importance about this particular test is it doesn't just give you the general description, but then it breaks it down into how that is unique to who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll go through these, but there might be for example, me and my father, we have, I know our top strength is the same. It shows up differently in who he is versus who I am, for all different types of reasons, right? And so when I read it, I read it and it really is reading me and the person that I am, that's unique to this other person who has, again, a similar strength or has the same strength and name, but it shows up very differently based on their
Mm-hmm.
experiences, who they are, maybe their season in life, and based on what the other top five strengths are, right? It takes all that into account when you're doing that. So it's one of the reasons I really like it. And and I think it can really help to frame what things, again, you can focus your energy on. Like, and for some of you, because this is what did for me, it surprised me on some things that I would not have thought were strengths.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I would have never
Yeah.
seen it as a strength. I really was, I had to, some of it I thought it was wrong. And I was like, well, this can't be right, this is not who I am. But again, that breakdown really helped, right?
Mm-hmm. I love that. So I think that something that really to keep in mind is that what it is really fighting against is this deficit mindset where we operate off of this I'm not enough
Mm,
mentality or I don't have what I need mentality, and really getting us to more of an asset based
yeah.
mentality where we are thinking we're going into spaces and into opportunities thinking I have what I need to be successful in this space. So, for those of you who have heard growth mindset versus fixed mindset, like Strengths Finders feeds right into that. Like,
Yep.
I can use what I have to be better at this or to be more productive in this space if I use what is naturally occurring to me. Now, the other thing that Strengths Finders really teaches is the difference between a talent and a strength, right? A talent is something that is just naturally found in us, that naturally occurs, right? And you may use it, but you're not using it at its peak performance because you are not using it repetitively, right?
Mm,
Which is the purpose of Strengths Finder is like, hey, maybe if you know that this is a strength, you will use it more and become more consistent in performing in this thing at a high level consistently. And when you can really execute consistency and a level of excellence in your talent now becomes a strength.
Yep.
Right. So again, it doesn't want you to focus on your deficits or on what you consider to be weaknesses. It wants you to focus on your strengths as assets so that you will invest into your talents to make them strengths, right? So you have your talent is naturally occurring, you have a strength that happens after you have invested into your talent. What do you invest into your talent with? Knowledge and skill, right? A lot of times we make our personality, or we make our what we feel like we offer to the world, our skill set.
Yeah.
Your skill set is just sharpening your strengths,
That's good.
right? And so this test allows you to take a step back and say, so, hey, listen, yes, I'm good. I'm able to do these things. I have these certifications. I have these abilities, but my natural strength that's operating in the background and informing everything I'm doing, right, has been made better by these things. And I can continue if I lead with my strengths and not just with what I'm able to do. I can perform in any environment, right? Because I know what I'm bringing into those environments.
So for clarity, you take this test and then it lists a strength. Are you saying that it is not a strength until I practice it, or it's a strength and it so in other words, like, kind of break that down, because it
Yeah.
reads as though I'm already strong in this stuff, but what you're
Yeah.
saying is I got to
It
put in
is
some sort of work to
when
actually create
you
the strength.
yeah, when you get those test results back, I believe it's actually going to call those themes. Like those your top 5 strengths are just themes, are areas of talent that you naturally have, that the more you use it, these will become strengths, are already strengths that you haven't realized. Oh, this is what I've been working on the entire time. For instance,
Right.
my top strength is input, right? And it is input are people who like to collect things, or they like to collect data. At that time when I took strengths finders, I was like, why is my first one input? That doesn't
Mm,
make any sense to me. Like, I was completely surprised by it because I thought I was going to get something relational as my first one. But then I realized I had already been working on that because I learned MBTI before I learned Strengths Finders. And I took that and I collected all the information I could about that test, all the information I could about people around me, and I started sucking in information,
mm,
like taking it in high volumes. And I did not realize that me doing that was a strength.
yeah.
So sometimes your test results are pointing to, hey, did you know that what you're doing is actually one of your strengths? Right. And sometimes it's pointing at, hey, you have a really natural talent for this. And if you would shift your focus to focus more on this instead of all these things that you thought you were supposed to be focusing
Mm.
on, then you will see the benefits of this becoming a strength.
All right, so why don't we go through and let's kind of go through what our top 5 strengths are. Obviously, we're not going to cover all of them because
It's
between the
34.
two of us, there's only possible 10, and I think we have some that cross over even. So we're not going to go through all 34, but hopefully through the conversation of us breaking down what we do have, and I think also being intentional about talking about those 4 big categories, because all
Mm-hmm.
your strengths are going to land in those categories, and we definitely cover the gamut there. Then you can find like you can be helped through how we process through this, right? And how it's helped us to unlearn some things, and move into different seasons of our life of really to uh, creating these as strengths by skills and knowledge of these natural talents. Did I do all that right? Was
Yeah,
that the
no,
right
that
way
was
to put
good.
it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, so Quita, so I have pulled up kind of my top 5, and they're like general kind of description. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that, and then you want to do the same thing with your top 5.
Sure.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna do my top 5. Then Queen's gonna do her top 5. All right. So my top 5. My first one is connectedness. The general description of connectedness is you have faith, In the links amongst all things, you believe there are very few coincidences and that almost everything has meaning. Okay. Um, that's my top one. By the way, that shocked me. I did not realize, I didn't think that would be my top one, but whatever. My second one is relator. This also shocked me. You enjoy close relationships with others. I did not realize that. You found deep satisfaction, and I didn't. I ain't gonna lie to you. I didn't realize that. Um,
Ruth said, "I enjoy what?"
I was like, that can't be right. So you enjoy deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. All right. The third one I have is arranger. You can organize, but you also have flexibility that complements this ability. You like to determine how all the pieces and resources can be arranged for maximum productivity. That I immediately connected with. Um, Now, my fourth one is context. You enjoy thinking about the past. You understand the present by researching its history. Got it. And then my last one is strategic. You create alternative ways to proceed. Faced with any given scenario, you can quickly spot the relevant patterns and issues.
Okay, so just list those for us real quick, Ruth.
All right. So we got connector,
Mm-hmm.
relator,
Mm-hmm.
arranger, context, and strategic.
Y'all, once again, me and Ruth are going to be very, very different. All right.
Hilarious. Yes.
And we'll talk about a little bit more about why momentarily. All right, friends. So just to give you, if anybody was like, "Hey, I want to know more about Jaquita," well, 1, 2, 3, here you go. All right. So my first one is input. Okay, input says that people talented in the input theme have a craving to know more. Often they like to collect and archive all kinds of information, which I told you guys I'm all into everything personality, identity, leadership, all of those things. I seek out information.
Mm.
Also, help me with my degree. I got religion degree and master of divinity. So those things kind of really pulled in there. My next one is empathy. Empathy says, where's empathy? Oh, people, especially talented in the empathy theme, can sense other people's feelings by imagining themselves in others' lives or situations.
Mm.
Then I have positivity. People talented in this theme have contagious enthusiasm. They
Ah,
are upbeat and can get others excited about what they are going to do. Okay, I think that one speaks for itself. All
wow.
right, then
Wow.
I have connectedness, and which Ruth Abigail read, but I'll read again. They have faith in the links among all things. They believe there are few coincidences and that almost every event has meaning. Then I have a woo. Can you woo woo woo? Sorry, I have to sing it every time. People talented in the woo theme love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. Woo stands for winning others over. They derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with someone. So my top 5 are input,
Mm-hmm.
empathy,
Mm.
connectedness, positivity, and woo woo woo.
That is, I mean, it is wildly different.
Yeah,
We are very different people.
yeah.
Uh that's okay. So let me ask you this: which one of those surprised you the most, and which one of those did not surprise you at all?
Definitely input. I was like,
Mm.
because it even when I list them out, it's input, connectedness, positivity, empathy, and woo. It was like, what is this input one doing here? Like, what is that? And for it to be first, I was like,
Mm,
who does she think she is? Just rolling up in here into
sure.
my relational
I was
theme.
about, yeah, messing up my relationship
Yeah,
skills, right?
yeah, my relationship building skills around here. And so I it took me a while because and the way that a lot of the descriptions are about input, it's like they like to collect things. Like they'll often have, like a lot of books, which I do have a lot of books. But it was just like I was like, so like I collect like stamps and like baseball cards. What you mean? I like to collect things, and so that one took me a moment to really digest.
Mm,
I think the one that didn't surprise me at all was positivity.
Sure.
I am idealistic. I am silver lining. I am, hey guys, it's a bad situation, but when we really look at it, you know what I'm saying? This is actually a good thing because God, all things work for the good. And then the way God gonna flip it is, like that is me all
Yeah.
day. And
Sure.
I'm really excited to talk about how I've had to process positivity.
Mm.
She's the one that I've had to be like, all right,
Mm.
I need to work through this a little bit. So yeah. How about you, Ruth?
Mm. Mm. Yes. Oh no, the one who that shocked me the most was absolutely Relator. I have lived most of my life not thinking I enjoyed people very much. Like that's legit. Like I
Yeah,
just
we all
like I
felt
don't.
that.
Yeah. Well, and I get that because again, you look at the other ones. To your point, it just feels out of place. All my other things, for the most part, I mean, connectedness maybe, but that one really just confused me. I just didn't know what that meant. It took me a while to even figure out what that even meant. But like the arranger, context, and strategic are very much like doer, problem solving, kind of like productivity things, which was like, yeah, that's totally me. I get that all day. Relator,
Mm-hmm.
like, where's that? What is that? Like, I
Why
don't
am I
want to.
relating to people? I
I
ain't got
don't want.
time for that.
I didn't want it. I just like I don't want this. Like, I don't want that. So I looked at it and I promise you for the first like I was like
I
this
don't
has
want
to
it. It's crazy.
I didn't know. I was like I'm pretty sure this is wrong. And so I kept reading, and when I read closely and even when I read it, like I was like, oh, okay. So it's not just relationships. I don't enjoy a lot. I don't need a lot of relationships. It's close relationships. I do enjoy that. And I do like this end part, which I actually think they may have added. I don't remember reading this before, but finding deep satisfaction and working hard with friends to achieve a goal. I if you know me at all,
Deep satisfaction.
I love working towards something with people. Like I wanna like when we have conversations, I wanna feel like we left a little closer to something different, right? Um it's that productivity piece. But that relator was very shocking to me. And for me, this was one of the most pivotal things. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode. Like I could not understand how I landed in the particular career path that I'm in. I've never understood. I was like, I don't see how this fits who I am. And then when I read that, I was like, oh, you know, I do enjoy close relationships with people. And it's not that I don't like people at all. I like to develop the relationship. And so
Mm.
I took that information, and at the time I was actually doing youth training, youth workers training. Like I was doing some training for youth workers and development around people who work with young people, particularly in the after school setting. And so we had them take it. This is like the first class we had. We had them take it, and so we took it too. And when I took it, I said, "Huh." So I really, when I started doing a little research, I said, "Oh man, I think what I might enjoy is one-on-one conversations." So this is going to speak to a little bit of how I got better at this. This became a real
Mm.
strength. So I embedded into my job description that for each we started off just doing like classes once a week, and
Mm-hmm.
that was basically it. But I said, "Hey, I think I want to include one-on-one coaching once a month with with the
Mm-hmm.
women in the class." And
Nice.
so that I said, I feel like that's going to feed me and this strength in a way. After studying it, I think this could be a way to do that, like to get to know them more deeply and to achieve a goal, right? It just all fit. And because I realized I'm a better instructor and facilitator when I know the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a mechanism of getting to know the person. And so I did that. And when I tell you it shifted my whole experience in that role.
I bet
And
it did.
it became a staple in the way that we did the program, right? And those one-on-one conversations, I got really good at one-on-one conversations. I also got really good at asking questions. And
Uh, Let's take a moment because if you guys have been following the Unlearned podcast for any amount of time, right, and not just this segment, but all the segments, Ruth Abigail is really good at asking questions. She's really good at getting people to probe past like surface level information and digging deep, right? So let's just take a moment and
Wow.
appreciate that strength of Ruth Abigail,
Well, I
the
appreciate that.
ability to ask good questions.
I
Because I
appreciate
don't.
that. It's
When people say, "Hey, does anybody have any questions?" I'm like, I have no questions. It's not till other people start asking questions. I'm like, dang, that was a good question.
That's hilarious. But it takes practice. To your point, it's a talent that had to be refined, and I had to do
For
stuff. I had
sure.
to that skill had to be practiced over and over, and understanding that is a strength or a potential strength of mine. Like there's something in me that is that has the traits of a relator. Then I need to put that to practice, and I did, and I got good at it. And now the way I communicate with people, particularly one on one, is I think it's grown to a higher level because I
Mm-hmm.
understand this, right? And so it was a surprise. It was something I didn't want, and it's something I did not expect. Um, and yet, it was probably the thing that was the most impactful. This knowledge made it the most impactful for
Mm.
me.
But I think something you just said just really struck me that, like, a lot of times we get upset when we are in situations like, why do I always have to be the one that, is giving the advice? Why do I always have to be the
Mm,
one that is asking the questions, or why do I always have to be the one that's trying to get everybody organized and arranged? It's because the Lord, if that's where your belief system is, the Lord is putting you in circumstances that
right.
is refining your gift,
Mm,
right? You're good at it, but in order to get you to a place where you do it consistently and excellently, you are going to find yourself in situations where that gift has to be brought to the surface and used repetitively, right? And a lot of times we get tired of doing what we're good at,
yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
it's like, why am I always the one encouraging and motivating people? Because you got
Right.
positivity.
That-
Like
Facts.
like
That's right.
and it has to be refined, and it is not enough to say, oh yeah, in my conversations with my friends I'm really good
Mm-hmm.
at giving people the silver lining or the positive sides of things.
Mm,
That gift has to be forged in many different types of fire in order for it to be both consistent and excellent. It's not consistent if I can only use it in one area of my life, and
absolutely.
it's not made excellent if I don't allow the other things in my life to start cutting at what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
You have got to allow, yes, you are producing, like your strengths are giving, but by you practicing your strengths, you are also being refined in the process.
And I love that, and I think that the other thing, like when you said, like, why am I the person? It's like an artist that has to sing their number one hit at every performance.
Mm.
It's got to be so it's like, I am so tired of doing this song, right? Lauren
Mm-hmm.
Hill has to do Killing Me Softly every time she touches a stage. Why?
One time.
Very good.
Thank you.
You She has to do it because she knows that her audience is prepped for that.
We're
And
ready.
we're ready. It's like, this is what we need from you. And then you begin to realize that your strengths aren't for you. They're for other people. Now, so that means you're going to get tired of it because you're living with it forever, but it's really designed to help others. So I think that part of that refining process you're talking about, Quita, is the is understanding the selfless nature that you have to
Mm.
begin to grow in order to really allow these strengths to to take their full course. You're
Yeah.
not gonna feel like, I don't feel the results of me being a relator or of my connectedness as much as maybe other people do. Like,
Mhm.
so connectedness is really interesting. Again, I that was a weird. I don't think that was an
It's
unexpected
the
one.
only one we share.
I didn't understand it. Like, I didn't
Mhm.
understand it for years, really. I was like, I genuinely don't get why is this even a strength? Like, I think that was for anybody. Like, it was like, okay, I believe in all, like, there's links to all things. Why is that a strength? Like, okay, cool. Like, a lot of people believe that. You know what I'm saying? If you believe in God, that's pretty much what you believe. Why is that a strength? I didn't get that. I do now. I think. Like, it's still a little fuzzy to me sometimes.
It's the levels of doubt.
But that's the other
The
thing.
skepticism.
I've never thought of myself as a faith person, honestly. Like, I am I have a faith, but as far as it being like faith being anywhere near a strength for me, never thought like that. That did not resonate. And it took me a lot of time to figure out how that belief system kind of manifested itself in my life. So, how do you describe it for you? Connectedness.
So connectedness for me is I feel like it is used in a very transformative way for me. Like I use it to explain, like I use it to it works in correlation with all my other strengths. Like it is like my positivity and my input and connectedness is right there in the middle so that I can put together these beautiful, very statesman like explanations of people of who they are, what's going on in your life, how it's all connected and bringing all the pieces together, right? It also helps me, like when we talk about that having faith, like I don't think that faith has ever been, and when we talk about faith, we're not talking about our belief system,
Right.
but like just like the faith to like walk day to day in it. Like I that's not struggle for me
Yeah.
because I believe it is the thing that is connecting everything for me. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, let me help you. It helps me to explain things and helps me to articulate belief. I do that through connectedness.
And so that's interesting. I to be honest, me and Quita were talking, we were prepping for this, we were talking about this, and it literally just clicked for me as to why how this I saw this strength play itself out in a particular way. If I believe that innately everything happens for a reason, I'm very comfortable with understanding that my what I contribute to it is a very small part of what the outcome is going to be. Like I'm comfortable with that
Mm.
reality. So it makes me a lot more comfortable with risk. It's like, I mean, there are some things I can control. There are most things I can't control. So I'm not going to spend as much time on that. I'm going to do what I can. And I'm hoping that this outcome comes as a result. But I realize that most of the things that are going to contribute to that outcome actually aren't about what I do. It's about
Mhm.
something higher and above and beyond me. And so because I trust, because in my particular belief system, I trust that that thing higher and greater and beyond me is ultimately good, then I am less afraid to take some risk to do some things,
Yeah, see,
right?
and I'm not that way at all.
That's not you, right?
No, 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 no. My connectedness has nothing to do with that because I am very afraid of taking
Oh,
risks. If we could revisit the personality conversation
sure.
and go back to that P versus J,
Mm,
my mind is thinking of all the possibilities and all those potential threats and outcomes are interconnected. They're connected. And so like in my mind, it is my connectedness as for me prevents me sometimes because I'm
mm,
thinking if I take this step, then it's going to be related to five other steps that I could possibly take that could potentially end in something negative that will turn out good, but I'm still trying to avoid
right,
the negative.
right.
Right? Like I'm not walking in the risk thing. I was all gonna work out in the end. I'm like, but you don't see all them pitfalls that could possibly happen on your way to the end.
Okay, but okay, so I want to talk about this. I think this is interesting. These strengths that we have, there are, we coined them, or I know we didn't coin them, but it has been coined that there are basements to these and ceilings to these, right? So there are
Hmm.
things about these that can be really detrimental,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, and then there are things that can be extremely beneficial. So let's just talk a little bit about what some of the basements to strengths period, like in general, like
Hmm.
and I'll name one because I think it's important, and I think for people like myself for sure, and anybody who relates to this characteristic of being driven, being kind of a growth minded person, that when you when you overemphasize your strengths. Sometimes you can create blind spots and not pay any attention to what you're not good at. And so that would be an example of abasement. That is not a good, we
Mm-hmm.
can't just have blinders on. It's a tunnel vision kind of, I'm only caring about what I'm good at and I'm not fooling with all this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's a good example of what a basement for a strength could be. What's another basement for a strength? What can a strength do that maybe isn't beneficial? Or knowing your strengths that could
Um.
do could be beneficial.
Can I use me as an example? Do you mind?
Absolutely. No,
All right,
no,
I
go
want
ahead.
to talk about my positivity,
Yeah,
okay,
do
and
that. Do that. Do
how
that.
and how I learned the basement of my positivity.
Let's get into it. Mm,
I am very idealistic. When people tell me negative things, I my again, my internal response, my natural response is to flip it, because I don't like for people to stay in a negative space, right? I want
mm,
people to feel encouraged and inspired and motivated, and to have the energy to just push, 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 push. Well, the basement of positivity sometimes is that we don't deal with negative emotions or negative
mm,
circumstances very well. So when my dad started having health issues, and I was constantly day after day like, oh, dad, it's gonna be fine, because we're
mm,
gonna X, Y, and Z, and then we're gonna twist it, turn it, flip it like this right here, and it's gonna be good. And after doing that, after a year of not seeing
mm.
change, and we were really struggling to get benefits, which I feel like we need to have a whole conversation about
Ugh.
Social Security
Oh Lord.
and how that works, and disability, and the system needs to be revolutionized. Thank you
Mm,
very much. But in going through that, I realized my positivity is not allowing him to grieve,
mm,
and it's not allowing me to really sit in the moment of what's happening, and to be able to really address the real needs, because I'm trying to squash down everything as it's happening so
mm.
that it doesn't erupt, because
Yeah.
there is a fear that if I don't stay positive, everything will erupt into a volcanic eruption of grief and sorrow and
Mm,
fear and anger and doubt. And so I'm always like, and so the basement of my positivity is that sometimes I use it to avoid negative feelings, and I don't allow myself or others to grieve hard circumstances.
mm.
And I had to unlearn that. I had to unlearn that my strength is a strength in every
Yeah,
context.
that's good.
I had to unlearn the idea that there are not weaknesses to my
Mm,
strength.
mm,
And I had to learn that in order for my strength to really show up, I had to I had to work through other things in that environment. It is not always the appropriate thing to just kind of push over on people, right? Just like woo is not always
yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, winning others over, you over here. I have I'm not gonna name him, but one of my good friends, he is the wooiest of the woo. Okay, this man could come in and charm anybody. He came to
Yep.
visit me recently and had everybody in the office just, oh, we just love, he's so amazing. Oh my goodness. And I'm just like, here you go again. But like in every context, there is a basement to that.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it can prevent you from getting to know people authentically.
Mm.
Because when you are wooing somebody, when you are winning others over, it can get manipulative.
I'm about to say, yeah, manipulation can come into that for
Yeah, it
sure.
can get manipulative. It can get, I know y'all all know that. Y'all all got a male friend that be wooing, and that's all I'm gonna say on that.
Ah, mm, mm-mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-mm.
Y'all all know somebody.
Let that sink now. Let that sink.
Y'all all know some bodies, okay? Because you know a couple of them that know exactly how to turn that swag on.
Yep.
They know exactly what to turn up and what to turn down to
Mm-hmm.
get somebody to do something that if they were in their right mind,
Mm,
they may not have done, right?
mm-hmm.
Woo has a basement. It has a context where we can use it for harm. Just because it is a strength that you are performing consistently and excellently does not mean that you're not doing it in a harmful way. I can consistently and excellently use woo in
Yeah.
a way that is harmful, And while it is producing a thing, is it producing a righteous thing?
Mm.
And so, absolutely, the intent and stance of your heart matters in this. And you have to commit yourself to integrity in all of these.
Yeah, I think I mean, I love that you went there because strengths, any kind of strength, right? When I have a strength in something, like, you do have to manage your use of that and make sure that the motivation is a motivation that is not self-serving. Um because then that becomes a it it becomes dangerous, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
think about very famously, right? And I don't I'm let me preface this by saying I do not know if this is a strength of his. I have no idea. I don't know the man. But you think about come on, the it just left me. Who is the guy who stole everybody's money and, like, with the stock market, and went to jail? What is his name? Producer Joy, can you help me out? um I'm blanking. That's crazy. I just
Yeah,
had it in my
I don't know.
head.
Is this the Wolf of Wall Street
No, it's
guy?
not the Wolf of Wall Street. It's the guy. He is. It was a Ponzi scheme. He did a Ponzi scheme, and he had all these people invest this money with him, and then it turned, like, it was basically he was investing money and then investing money and continued to invest money. He got really rich, but it turned out that it was really just a pyramid thing, and he's in
My
jail now.
Lord.
Why am I blanking on this? Y'all know who
I
I'm
have no
talking
clue.
about. So
I do not.
we gonna get okay. Quita doesn't know, but Joy's about to get producer Joy's about to get this because I promise you. Anyway, he used his abilities, right? His skills and abilities, financial skills, but also his influential skills, right? I mean, I don't know if he had the Wu character, but I would imagine on some level, like, that was a part of his gifting. Bernie Madoff, thank you very much. Um,
Shout out producer
Shout out to producer
Joy.
Joy. Bernie Madoff. Yeah, this just came to me, so this isn't planned to say, but, like, Bernie Madoff on some level has to be convincing, influencing to get people to invest their life savings with him, right? And he used it for his own benefit and for the benefit of his family at the expense of other people's livelihoods, right? Yeah, okay, he died in 2021. I knew he was, I couldn't remember. I knew when he died. If he did die, it was recent. So he spent years and years, decades in jail. Um, but anyway, that's an example, I think, just a really, like, broad public example of how your strength. He was good at what he did. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
was great at investing. He was good in the financial world. He had experience in it, but he took it and he used it for something that was self-serving, and it was dangerous. And so
Yeah. I
that
mean, that's how all of these cult leaders,
we have all the
yeah,
exactly, yes,
all
cult
of these
leaders.
documentaries on
Yep.
Netflix right now, the one about the boy bands,
Uh-huh.
I can't remember his name, but I watched that one. The one about the TikTok dancers,
Okay.
right, who got caught up in
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
religious, like, yeah, all of these people had a strength that was probably, it was either woo or it was something that was used to woo.
Mhm.
Because it definitely, like, people get caught up. And you want to know what's interesting is that most companies are looking for people with woo. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, they love it when I tell people I have woo, like, everybody perks up. They're like,
Yeah.
oh yes, awesome, because it is something that they know they can put out into the marketplace, and I am going to be a magnet that is going to bring business in and build these really important relationships that's going to. And so, yeah, everybody, that is one that I think really gets manipulated, which is
Yeah.
interesting because it uses a little manipulation at times.
Yeah.
That gets manipulated the most.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I agree. I
the
think
basement of woo is deep.
no, that's deep. That's
The
deep. Now,
the, the
the
basement is woo
basement.
is deep.
I mean, that's huge. Like, I think the basement of even relator, right? I'll use. I actually want to use a different one, but just because we're in this, when you have the ability to connect to somebody, you can influence them in a way that is you can use that to influence them in a way that maybe other people that you're not as connected with aren't gonna fall into, right? I mean, that's just
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah,
So
you're their person.
yeah, you become that, right? And so all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, what you say, what you say, there's less questions about it because there's a trust there that has been built. And so you have to be very careful about that. Like you can't take that and run with it and become kind of yeah, like manipulative and again self-serving in that and controlling. Like there's an element of being controlling that can come with
Mm-hmm.
that. For me, one of the basement the strength that I have that I see a clear basement in is can be as a ranger. So in a ranger, basically I'm going to
Mm.
term it as a multitasker. Okay, but it's actually more than just multitasking. It's not quite that simple. It's more so like you can move between things fluidly, right? I'm very flexible in how I can move, and I put pieces of puzzles together pretty well. And I can put pieces of different things together. And this is key in order to maximize productivity. So like I know how to take a lot of things that seemingly for other people might feel like they're conflicting in some way, but I know how to make it make sense and to bring it together to start flowing in the same direction. I'm good at that. And I've had to learn how to do that. For me though, what that manifested itself in was overcommitment. Um, Especially early on, as I was figuring out myself
Mm.
professionally. I was overcommitted. I was doing way too many things. Now
Mm-hmm.
the problem was that I felt like it was fine because I could manage it all. But as I got older, it wasn't an issue of mismanagement. It was of the things. It was a mismanagement of energy. So like when you're overcommitted, you tend to um you become you're committed to so many things that you actually your contribution levels become lower to those things.
Mm-hmm.
What I was more interested in was listing out all the things I did as opposed to what I contributed to those things. I cannot
Mm.
contribute at the same level if I'm and so that arranger strength was it gave me a nice list of things I was doing, but when I peeled the layers back, how much was I really contributing? Not a whole lot, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I had to focus on what things do I what are the things that I need to do, but also what are the ways in which I'm contributing so that all those things actually are progressive, like they're moving in a direction that's positive. And
Mm-hmm.
but that I was in that basement of that strength for a while, even before I even knew it was a strength. Like I was the person who was doing all these things and not just doing things, but actually doing things at a seemingly high level or I existed in the high like I would be on all these leadership teams and I would be in places where I was able to make decisions and I was that kind of thing. So it wasn't just I'm just kind of doing a whole bunch of random things, but it seemed like it
Mm-hmm.
was the right thing to do. So yeah, that would be my example of, kind of where I lived in the basement for one of these strengths. And it burned me out. I was completely burned out to the point where I think it was like 2000, maybe 18 or 19. I dropped everything I did. I just dropped everything. Like
I remember
I,
that.
s- I stopped. I can't continue
Mm-hmm.
to do this.
Yeah.
So you don't want to get to that point to where, your strength is used in a way that is not really productive and you end up burning out. You overused it to the point to where now I can't use them. Like I
Yeah.
can't do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Um so all right, what's a strength, what is an example of a strength that you feel like is a ceiling for you? Like what does that look like when you are at your most high performing self?
Hmm. I think one that for me consistently kind of hits the ceiling is I'm gonna go back to positivity. Me and
Yeah,
positivity,
yeah,
we've had a time. We've
yeah,
had a
yeah, I
time.
see that.
But
Yeah.
the thing that I am most commended for and kind of most
Mm,
called upon for is my energy. It is
mm,
like the ability to infuse energy into a room, into a concept, an idea, an endeavor, an opportunity. Like I can get people energized about what we are going to do. Which is why I was really good in student activities and involvement
mhm, mhm,
because I could pump up a team to produce really good events, and then I could pump up a crowd to really enjoy whatever it is that we're offering. And then I could really pump the university up about, having more involvement initiatives.
Yeah.
I can really just get people hype. It is something that
True.
I know that I
Yeah.
am very good at. Like, I know that I can take boring material and make
Mm.
people feel like they're having a grand time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know that, like, that is a ceiling, and that is one that I feel like I have been able to operate consistently and excellently in,
Yeah.
because positivity is all about, like, when people feel good about what's happening, they will give it the energy that it deserves, even when there's negative things happening.
Mm.
I'm really good at helping
Mm-hmm.
organizations to go through transition and all that. Like, I just know that, like, that it again, it has a ceiling and it has a basement.
Right.
And I do feel like I operate more in the ceiling now, but I think that's because I'm way more aware of the basement of it now. And so
Yeah.
I feel like I use it more appropriately.
Mm. That's good. Yeah. Um. I I think that again, I think my curiosity in how I relate to people is a
Mm-hmm.
ceiling. Like I live really well when I'm curious, and I do have questions, and I want more. Like, give me more. Nope, there's more. Like, and let's get to the depth of what's really, what the real problem is, so we can actually come
Mm-hmm.
to a real solution. And I think those play, like, when I'm connecting with an individual, and we're able to get down to the depth of something through questions,
Mm-hmm.
through curiosity, then we can come to a strategic plan to figure this thing out. And I think
Yeah.
those two things, like, I will use that a lot, and I enjoy using it, and I feel like that's where I really like it. Like, and I use it
I
with
would
Quita. Quita
I
has
would
been
like
my
to
test
say,
case for a lot of things.
first of all, also, and it is, I think, until we really started to get to know one another, I think it was one of your critiques of me all the time.
Mm,
You used to tell me, you used to always say, Chiquita, you need to be more curious.
mm.
Like, and if you were curious, you would ask better questions. And I used to be like, well, how the devil do I become curious? I don't know how to do that, Ruth Abigail. Like, I am not naturally a curious person.
Uh-huh.
But it was interesting that you used to say that to me all the time. So I think that that's
Interesting.
interesting that you're like, I'm so curious. And I'm like, of course you are.
I
Of
That's
course you are.
hilarious. I am, man. I love learning, like, new things about things, or about people, mostly about people. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really interesting. Okay, so I think this ceiling part, right? So what if we have people who, because I think a lot of times, even though this strength finders is really, like you were saying earlier, it's about focusing less on the deficits and more on our assets.
Mm-hmm.
We are still wired as humans to think more of the negative than the positive. I mean,
Yeah, we have a
naturally,
negativity
we
bias.
we go down versus coming up. So there probably are people that are much more familiar and can be very are more familiar with the basement of their strength than they are the ceiling of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's help people to, what does it look like to unlock your strength in a way that helps you to understand what the ceiling is?
I think that you have to honor your own impact. I think
Mm,
a lot of times we give way more credence to where we feel like we could have messed something up than to where we actually made something better. And I think that you have to, again, we talked in the last episode about the importance of reflection. When you are the purpose of reflection is not to say I did all of these things wrong and I need to fix me. Sometimes you need to take a moment just to honor the ways that your contributions are positively impacting your environments, the things you're working at, the people you're leading. And it's not as a in a place of bragging, but it's in a place of understanding.
mm,
This is who I am and this is what I naturally do. And we can't start learning other things until we learn what we do naturally, right?
yeah,
And we often try to add on these other skills and strengths, and I'm going to become better at this when you haven't become good at being you yet. And
yeah.
so allow yourself to, one, really exercise in the things that you're noticing about yourselves, and then practice honoring you, practice honoring, like, oh, and I really do think that made a difference in my leadership when I started telling my team, hey, I'm a transformational leader, and
Yeah.
I believe in having conversations that's going to get you to your next level, and here's how I do it. And when I started going to my team and saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what I do, and I honored who I was, it allowed me to consistently live in my strengths and be more asset focused versus deficit focused.
You made an analogy earlier that was really helpful, I think, to framing this conversation, um, about what it looks like to have a similar strength but have different tools and applying
Mm,
that, right?
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that
So yeah, talk
oh,
about it.
sorry, I didn't know if you
Talk.
want. Okay, I think that all of this, to me, when I think about strengths, I think about superheroes, right? Like I think about, like, you got your Spider-Man who can leap from building to building, but he has to use a web. You have Iron Man who can fly, but he has to use thrusters and technology, and you have Superman who has to use his strength to launch up off the ground in order to get into the air, and they all have this ability to travel through the air
Mm,
and to manipulate the air in order to move forward and to get from one place to the other, but they're all doing it in very different ways. And if you think about it, if Iron Man, with all of his equipment and technology, tried to get off the ground like Superman, if he tried to use what he had to thrust off the ground, the weight of who he was would be too heavy to be able to give him enough force to get into the air. Right. And a lot of times we try to learn about who we are by observing how other people do what they do. But the
yeah.
reason why they are good at what they do is because they have learned how to use what they have. Right. Superman ain't got no technology. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? There's no Jarvis talking to him, right?
Yep.
He has to use what he has to be good at what he does and not try to imitate. Just because both of them can fly does not mean that they have the same mechanisms that allow them to do that. And
That's
you
right.
have to spend time getting to know yourself and how, not just how one strength is working, because we are not compartmentalized, but how all of you is working together to produce these really supernatural results, right? Because everything in you is coming together to give you the ability to be successful and victorious in your life.
I think that's a good place to stop. I think that's good, Quita. I think you just you helped somebody. I think you helped somebody. I think
I
because
hope. I
I
hope.
hope you did, but I think you did because I think that that's a real temptation. To watch somebody else, and particularly somebody who you might admire, who you're like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
I see a little bit of me in that person. They're a little ahead of me. I would love to be like them. But
Mm-hmm.
realizing that the way to get there for you probably will be different. And
Probably will be
accepting that,
different.
accept that.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
don't be discouraged because of that.
I cannot tell you how long I held my own life back because I knew that I was supposed to be something, do something, and I thought that I had to go the way that other people went, and it kept me stuck. And the only way to get unstuck is you have to get some self-awareness, and you have to
Yep.
spend time with yourself saying, okay, I remember, and we can close on this. I remember, and I think I've said this before, I sat down one day and the Lord told me to write 10 good things about myself, and I could only get 3. Strengths finders helped me to fill in the blanks.
That's good.
It was after I took that assessment, I started really thinking through, wait a minute, Jaquita, no, you have things.
Mm,
And I had to start operating in them. And yes, I found basements and I found ceilings and I found the good and the bad of it, but I also found myself.
yeah.
And I found, okay, Jaquita, if you start putting it, it's like, like when you baking a cake, y'all, I really got into baking pound cakes. It's a whole thing,
Oh
right?
man.
When you're baking a cake, right, it's the putting together the ingredients in the right way, in the right order and the right, doing the right things that makes that cake come out the way it's supposed to be. But you have to know what your ingredients are. And that's what
That's
Strengths
right.
Finders is. Strengths Finders is, hey, here are your ingredients. Now let's start putting it together and see what we can make, baby. Let's see what comes out of this bowl when we're done mixing
Yeah.
and beating.
Yeah.
And when you get this in and you add that in and you like, nah, let me put a little bit more of that flour or a little bit more of that woo in there and a little bit more positive. And you are a whole being. You are not
Yeah.
one thing.
That's
So
right.
allowing yourself to be a complete and whole person.
Man, that's good. All right. So again, you can go. We're gonna put the link up if you've never taken the Strength Finder test. Do it. Spend a couple bucks, do it. It'll be worth it for you to uncover some of this stuff and unlock it.
And yo, put your 5 strengths in the chat. If you
Oh, yeah,
already
do that.
know them, or if you take the test and you find them, like, yo, hit us up. We want to know what your top 5 are.
Yeah, we want to know what your top. That's great. Yeah, let us know what your top 5 are. If you are unaware, I probably should be saying this. There's actually a website for this podcast. It is the unlearnedpodcast.com. Unlearned UNLEARNT.com. The unlearnedpodcast.com. You can go there and you can put your email in and give us your email, and then we can communicate with you even outside of these podcasts.
Ooh,
Look at
y'all need to
that.
hit that up. Come
Look at
on, let's
that.
do that.
Let us
Let's
know.
do
Let us
that.
know. Let us we want to get some we would love to hear your feedback and just connect with you directly, like me and Quita. We would love to do that, and we love to just know who's listening.
Would love
So
to.
if you feel so inclined, go to the website,
Feel inclined,
theunlearnedpodcast.com.
please.
Feel inclined. And drop your email in there. And we're not gonna hit you up with a whole bunch of stuff. We just want to get to know you. All right. So and then let us know what your strengths are. Like, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it. We will see y'all next week with another edition of an Unlearning Personality episode with a whole nother assessment. So stay tuned, and let's keep unlearning together so that we can experience more
More
freedom.
freedom. Yay.
Yay.
Bye, friends.
Peace.